Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Why of It All. We are so happy to have you here with us. Today, we are really excited. We have a guest. We haven't had a guest in quite a while, so this is really going to be a great conversation. And this is a guest who has a really interesting PTSD story and his journey of healing through that. So, Gina, why don't you give a little introduction for him?
Yes. Corby Maupin is a former Army combat engineer who spent a decade in service, including deployments to Afghanistan and Syria, before beginning a new chapter as both a student and an artist at Texas A&M University. Corby uses art to reflect on his journey from the military to creative expression. His work explores the full spectrum of human experience: beauty, fear, resilience, and hope, while honoring the people and stories that shaped his life. We're excited to talk with Corby today because beyond his art and military background, he also has an incredible healing story. Through his journey with the plant medicine Ibogaine, Corby experienced profound transformation and healing, and we'll be diving into that powerful part of his story, his path of recovery, resilience, and what it truly means to heal. So, without further ado, we're going to bring Corby on.
Hi, Corby. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Corby, I kind of want to just start at the beginning. Can you start by telling us a little bit about where you grew up, your childhood, maybe touch on that?
Sure. I grew up, we moved around a lot. I lived in Washington, Arizona. I was born in Colorado, but mostly I grew up in southern Missouri, mid-Missouri. I was there from, I think, probably about 7 until I joined the Army, which was about 28. I turned 29 in basic training. And my mom still lives up in the Ozarks in northern Arkansas, so I still go up there. My wife is from Springfield, Missouri. But yeah, so Missouri is mostly where I grew up.
Missouri.
But now Texas is my home.
And what brought you to Texas?
The Army. I was stationed out at White Sands Missile Range, which is technically New Mexico, but it's just a little bit into the desert from El Paso. So, West Texas. Yeah. That is where I spent 5 years of my military career and really fell in love with the culture. And then after that, I went to Germany for a few years and came back and was stationed at Fort Hood. And again, continued to fall in love with Texas. And I won custody of my son, who I came back to Texas to be closer to my son, who was living with my ex in Pflugerville.
Okay.
And then just the longer I was here, the more I loved it and decided not to leave, and started going to Texas A&M when I got out of the Army. And now this is my home and I have no intentions to leave.
It's a good place. We live in a good place to raise a family.
Exactly.
I feel like, Corby, what initially drew you to the military? And what was that experience like for you in those early years? Because how many years did you serve?
10 years active duty.
Right. That's what. Okay.
Yeah. And I'd like to add to that question. Is 28 a little bit on the older side for people joining the Army? Like, I usually think of people joining the Army right out of high school. I'm really curious what drew you to joining the service at that age.
Yeah, you're right. I was definitely a late bloomer. Turning 29 in basic training, I was older than my bosses usually. I was older than my drill sergeants. That didn't make them any less intimidating.
Oh, right.
So for me, joining the Army at that time was we do everything for multiple reasons, but probably the biggest reason was to get my life together so I could get custody of my son. Okay. But also I was real serious too about, I felt very strongly about what happened in 9/11, and I wanted to do something about it and be a part of it.
Wow. Yeah.
I had joined the Navy Reserves before that, but nothing really came of that, and I was kind of disappointed. And so there came a point where I was like, well, it's now or never. And also and for my own personal reasons, it's a great place to restart your life. Free room and board, on the job training,
Right.
and earn a little respect too, which I've needed.
For sure.
To try to get custody of my son, I needed to have a real life, a real home, a real job. All these things.
Yeah. You said you served 10 years and you had a couple of deployments, right, to Afghanistan and Syria? Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. So it was funny because part of the reason I left the Navy is they wouldn't deploy me because I was reserves, and so I didn't have any experience in my MOS in a real life scenario. So it was kind of hard to get a deployment without real experience, because in the Navy you deploy from the reserves on an individual basis usually. So I was kind of disillusioned and upset by that. That's why I left the Navy and joined the Army when I would decide to go active duty. And the Army had no problems deploying me. By the time I'd been in the Army 6 months, I'd been in Afghanistan for 3 weeks.
Wow.
It was quick, fast, and in a hurry.
They took you out. They just sent you over there real quick.
Yeah, so I joined the Army in 2010, went to basic training, and immediately after basic training, I had my orders to Afghanistan, just a couple of days after getting out of basic training. My unit the unit I was assigned to was already in Afghanistan when I was in basic training. So It was just show up, do my in-processing paperwork, my pre-deployment training, and then go.
Off you went.
Yeah. And so the first deployment was in Mazar-e Sharif in North Afghanistan. I was there for 9 months.
Okay.
Then came home, and this was at a time when rapid deployments were still pretty common, especially for my MOS. I was a 12 Bravo combat engineer, and our specialty was the route clearance, which was looking for the hidden roadside bombs. Basically, it became a real big part of that war was that they would bury bombs along the side of the road or underneath the road, and booby traps of all types. And that was my job, was to find those.
Wow.
Among other things, but that was primarily the job of the combat engineers. We were tasked to do all kinds of different stuff, but in this war, these 2 wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, that became our number one job was route clearance. So if, for example, an infantry unit was going to go do an assault at a particular village, we would go first to clear the road of all the bombs. Because on a particular, say there's a village down, say there's a village down a road, it could be 10 miles off the main highway. And that 10 miles might have 45, 50 bombs. And these bombs could be big, could be several hundred pounds, which is big enough to destroy even our armored vehicles with a direct hit. So our job would be to go and find those, clear that route, or just to keep a particular route clear in general, and so that the infantry or whomever could safely go down that road and accomplish their objective. So that was our job. I did that in North Afghanistan. We did that, and then did a rapid deployment again in 2011. I went back to Afghanistan. This time we were in RC East and did route clearance again there. That was my last time in Afghanistan. Thank God. I really didn't care for that place. Then my third deployment, before that, I was stationed in Germany for a couple of years, about 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay.
That was where my daughter was born.
Okay.
That was great. That was a lot of fun. A lot of great training opportunities and travel opportunities, and it was good for the family. But we came home from that to my next duty station being at Fort Hood. Then from there, I immediately deployed to Syria. Okay. This was when President Trump was last time, or the first time, I should say.
Okay.
And yeah, we were there there was just a brief period where we had troops on the ground, because most of our effect in Syria was just had special forces leading and training the local forces. And we also had like air support. But for a real brief period, we had regular troops.
Did something traumatic happen in Afghanistan for you, or in Syria, or both?
It's hard to say. I think it was, for me, my first deployment wasn't bad for me, but it was hard to say because there's just an extreme amount of stress all the time that you live under for a real long period of time. And I think that has an effect on the mind and on the brain.
Oh, yeah.
My second trip was much more stressful. My first trip, I worked at battalion headquarters doing intel. And that had an emotional effect on me because I was reading reports of all these horrible things that were happening. You know, it's a whole different world over there, and they don't have law and order the way we would describe it. It was really brutal, and some of the stuff that was just going on regularly in the local communities was really gnarly and affected my understanding of human nature, I guess. And then my second deployment was actual, like, regular stress of being on combat missions and, you know, people trying to kill you all the time.
You're in a constant fight or flight mode, basically.
That's exactly what it is. You're just constantly on high alert.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing. Like, you need to be on high alert, but like, it's not good for the brain. You know, that's why I think they changed the average deployment. It had been a full year or 15 months at the beginning of the war. And eventually they changed that to 9 months. And I think it's had a lot to do with the fact that after 8 or 9 months, they lose their ability to stay alert. And they become complacent after that. And then people start getting hurt. Then I think that's just your brain. You can't just be on high alert all the time indefinitely. It's not good for you.
No.
But then Syria, along those lines, Syria was a strange place for me. And it was, again, the same thing. It was just being on high alert all the time. That one, to me, was much scarier and spookier, even though we weren't under direct combat. Some people got killed, not in my unit, but, you know, people were getting killed. But it was a different sort of crazy environment and had a lot to indirect or like kind of abstract danger that was particularly hard to comprehend because there's no like specific bad guy to look at and say, like, there's the bad guy, we can get that guy and we're good. Like, this was very abstract. Like, there was a lot of booby traps left over. Like, we were in Al Raqqa, I think is the name of the city. It was the most booby trapped city on earth. And we were going through there pretty regularly, and people were dying there. The locals mostly were dying there like every day. People were dying from, because when ISIS pulled out, they booby trapped every building, every street, everywhere. They put booby traps everywhere, and they were very good at it. So people, as they were trying to move back in, were getting blown up as they'd go back into their old apartments and houses and stuff. So that was real stressful. Plus, I mean, there was people actively out there trying to kill us too. And then on top of all that, there was about 5,000 ISIS that were taking refuge just over the border in Turkey. And there was a big standoff between us and them. And that was extremely stressful to me.
Of course.
I think just living under that much stress for that long was really harmful to my brain.
Well, it's like I'm over here thinking, like, I get stressed when there's too much traffic in the morning. Like, when somebody cuts me off, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like yelling and screaming and cursing. And I'm like, okay,
perspective.
Your story is really helping me to really understand, like, our bodies get in fight or flight a lot, but like, we don't really know what fight or flight is, because I could not imagine being, as I'm listening to you, I'm putting myself in your shoes, and I'm like, I would have crumbled the first deployment. Like, I would have been like, disabled, send me home, I'm done. Like, anyway, I just, hearing you talk about it, I just have so much respect for the time that you served, and really it gives me a new appreciation of what you guys do over there for our country. I mean,
It was pretty gnarly.
Yeah. So anyway, I just made me think about my problems are not my fight or flight is really not fight or flight. I guess it is for us personally, but like
the brain, everything is relative in terms of how your brain perceives threat, right?
Yeah.
And so it is always, everything is subjective, but, stories like this certainly serve to give people like us who haven't served some very important perspective.
Yes. So thank you. When you come back from that deployment, I hear many veterans talk about how difficult it is to adjust back to civilian life. Mm-hmm. Did you find that to be true for yourself, Corby?
Yes and no. Like I want to kind of carry on what you guys were saying is that you get upset in your normal daily life, and that's normal. Like you have normal ups and downs, and going to a place, like Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or just any war zone in general, like you start having extreme highs and extreme lows, which is an extreme low, something horrible happening is also, keying up your brain. It's a form of high, even though it's a negative feeling, it's still a form of your brain getting cranked up to level 11, and so you start having these extreme highs, extreme lows, sometimes in one day, so that kind of becomes normal, and you start having issues with like regulation, like what you're talking about, like driving to work, that's frustrating, and your mind is going like from like medium, say 0 to 3, or you get a bad review at work and then you get down, and that's like a -3, right. And then this is like probably like the normal healthy range of the human mind,
right?
Okay,
right.
And then like something terrible happens like this, and then you boost up. Like the worst thing that's happened this year, it might be like a 5 or a 6, and then you go back to normal. Well, what happens with, and this is just my analogies that from reflection is, you start going up to like a level 11, and then dropping down to like -11, and you have these extremes, and then that just eventually that becomes normal. It's like catching manic depression, if you will. You go, it's no longer like going from +3 to -3. It's from +11 to -11. And then that becomes normal. And especially in the Army, my experience was like the Army teaches you how to maintain control of yourself in extremely stressful situations and with high energy and high adrenaline. Like you're taught that from day one in basic training. Like they wake you up with sirens at 4 a.m, and they're screaming, and you learn how to maintain control of yourself when you're stressed like that. Okay, sure. They teach you how to like key up your brain, but they don't teach you how to like come back to normal.
Wow.
And I'm not saying this as a fault of the Army. Okay, that's not what, don't misunderstand. I'm not grinding an axe here. I'm just stating a pattern that I noticed is we get taught how to go up, but we don't get taught how to come back down to earth. Okay, and I think that goes hand in hand with the alcohol culture in the Army, because alcohol is a great way to like bring yourself down after being on high all day, and even at home, like it's a very intense work environment, because even at home when you're doing training and just working with heavy machinery, it's a very dangerous environment. You have to be on high alert. Even at home, people lose fingers and get really injured and get killed at home.
Yeah.
During training, and just like I said, heavy machinery operating is dangerous, and you're working with E4 specialist or Sergeant E5 or Staff Sergeant. That's the vast majority of the military. When you got First Sergeant, you got Sergeant Majors. These guys are big and scary and interact at high volumes, literally high volume, like you're screaming at each other. That's normal, So like you're keyed up and mentally at a really high level all day, and then you come home and we work a lot too. It's pretty normal. We're 50, 60 hours. And so you come home and you've only got 2 or 3 hours before you got to go to bed. Well, that's not enough time for a lot of meaningful activities. Plus, you still got to eat and hang out with your family. Right. But it is time to drink 4 or 5 beers.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of time to drink a few bourbon and cokes, you know, and that brings you back down to a normal level. And just, alcohol and Army culture are synonymous. You know, it's very normal for people who drink every day. I didn't realize that was abnormal until I got out of the Army. Yeah.
I haven't really heard much about that before. When you mention it, it makes sense. Like, I get it now, but that's not something I've heard described before. That's interesting.
And it's always been that way. It used to be worse. In the 80s, they served alcohol at the chow hall. Wow. And you could get beer at lunch. You know, and that was after World War II in Vietnam. That was real common. The Army's been trying to downgrade the alcohol consumption and glorification of alcohol, but they're not. Again, this sounds like a criticism, but it's not. No, it's just a statement. They're not showing anything to replace that.
Yeah,
they're not giving an alternate way to bring your mind to a place of peace.
I feel like I've heard before too something about this, maybe during Vietnam, and I don't quote me, but like, wouldn't they also give soldiers cocaine to keep them awake? I've heard that about the British Army. Back we're talking more along the lines of World War I. Yeah, yeah.
And there's a lot of people talk about like the Nazis were given the earliest forms of methamphetamine to their soldiers during World War II. But I'm not aware of the Army giving people anything other than alcohol and caffeine.
Okay.
It was the U.S. Army, I should say.
Well, speaking of drugs, how did you first hear about Ibogaine?
Well, before we go into that, I actually have a question.
Okay.
So you talked about what is essentially nervous system dysregulation, these extreme highs and extreme lows, and the inability to regulate yourself. Did you experience when you came home, did you have any other, what people might consider to be PTSD symptoms? Like, did you ever experience panic attacks, or did you find yourself being triggered and having anxiety moments about, things that those of us who haven't had the kind of experience you've had wouldn't react to? Anything else that came up for you after you came home, and you were going through your transition that you think would be, associated with PTSD or anything else?
Yeah, because I didn't actually answer your question when you asked about coming home. So after all that, coming home can be real challenging because now compared to going, like I said, maxing out ups and downs, normal life seems like going from HD to black and white. And it can be dull and feel like a sense of lacking in purpose and meaning. But it's not. It's just lacking in the extremes. And when that becomes normal to have extremes, then going back to like the normal ups and downs in life can be real challenging. On top of that, yes, it's not just craving extreme high and extreme low. You do have actual negative side effects of PTSD. One of the things is like constant alertness. Personally struggle with that because with the nature of my job, especially in Syria, was looking for booby traps. And in Syria, also snipers was a problem. It wasn't that long ago that Syria won gold medal at the Olympics for long distance shooting, and I was aware of that. Like, again, with booby traps and not seeing the bad guy, like there's no like specific guy. Okay, we killed him, we got him. Like this is a very abstract enemy. So for me, like, and I know other engineers that did route clearance, like you're on high alert for so long, and what people don't realize too is Afghanistan route clearance. Route clearance is mainly what I can speak to, but I've heard it's pretty similar in other, like for infantry guys too. Is that it's the most boring thing in the world. Like you're more bored. It's the most boring place you can imagine for days and weeks. Nothing, and it's absolutely boring. I remember one time wishing we would get attacked because I was a so bored.
Yeah.
But then you go from being extremely bored to like the most exciting thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
You know, the most exciting thing that can happen, you know, which is near death. You know, so.
Hey everybody, it's Melanie from The Why of It All. You guys already know Gina and I are passionate about healing mind, spirit, and body. And that's why we're proud to be sponsored by a brand whose passion for wellness runs as deep as ours, Tulip Blooms. Tulip Blooms is a family-owned American small business that handcrafts a variety of small batch premium skincare products, such as their original flagship product, Rainfall. Rainfall is a luxurious, lightweight face and body lotion made with soothing aloe vera and a powerhouse blend of cold-pressed botanical oils like jojoba, rosehip, and evening primrose. Rainfall is my go-to daily body lotion. I love that it's made with only the highest quality of pure, clean, natural ingredients. There's no synthetics at all, and it absorbs quickly, delivering lasting hydration without any greasiness. There are many scents to choose from, even unscented, but my favorite is rose geranium. Rainfall is gentle enough for the face, nourishing enough for the body, and the perfect daily go-to, especially after sun exposure when your skin craves extra care. Visit tulipblooms.shop and use our exclusive promo code HEAL, that's HEAL, at checkout for 10% off your order.
But the thing is that trains your brain, like, to always be on high alert.
Right.
And you're trying to always be on high alert. You're trying to always be looking for something that's abnormal along the side of the road, because that one little thing could mean the difference between getting blown up or not blown up.
And so when you came home, did you find it difficult to turn that hypervigilance off?
Yes. That stuck with me, honestly, until I went and did Ibogaine. It's just living your life like you're being watched. Because that was one of the things, we were being watched, and even when we weren't being attacked, we knew we were being watched, because they would watch us to see how we reacted and see if we set patterns. And they would do things like small attacks that weren't actually that important, but to see how we would react to that, and so that they could build a better battle plan for a real attack.
Sure.
So what did that look like for you at home, being in that hypervigilant state? Did you find yourself just like in a state of paranoia walking around in your normal life back home?
Yeah. I was professionally paranoid. I was paranoid on a professional level. You know, like at big events, I could tell which were the undercover police officers, and I would watch them. Yeah, just always looking over your shoulders, so to speak. Not literally, though, because looking over your shoulder is a great way to let people know that you know you're being watched.
Right.
You know, that level of paranoia is like I said, professionally paranoid for several years, and then I couldn't turn that off, and it was exhausting. It's exhausting. And that was part of the reason I drank, and that was part of the reason I smoked a lot of weed, because that was a way to tone it down, to try to relax.
Slow the brain.
Did you ever have trouble sleeping or panic attacks or anything like that?
I did have panic attacks when I first came home from Syria. Actually, I had panic attacks because I came home from Syria and I had about a year left on my contract, and I decided in Syria that I'd had enough. I used to feel like I was the luckiest guy in the world because I had so many close calls, like in Afghanistan. Every time we had a vehicle get blown up, my vehicle had driven over the bomb first, and then it blew up either directly in front of or behind me. One time we parked on top of a bomb, moved forward by 45 feet, and then it blew up. We parked on top of it, opened the back door, let a guy get out, dismount, and then we moved forward like 40, 50 feet, and the truck behind us got blown up real bad. The lieutenant got hurt pretty bad.
Wow.
But I never got blown up, and I felt like I was really lucky. But eventually in Syria, I stopped feeling lucky and started feeling like it was my turn. And I had enough, and I decided to get out. I had about a year left on my contract in the Army, and it was pretty bad at that point. I was having panic attacks, waking up in the middle of the night, and drinking became a real, at an unsustainable level. I remember going to it was like a pancake social thing at the VFW, And this is like 9 in the morning on a Saturday or something, and just like having a panic attack. And one of the old guys kind of realized what was going on and brought me a beer. And, you know, it was like 9 in the morning. The thing, it was at the VFW, and drinking is acceptable anytime. But yeah, and also I remember like having a drink and take like a couple double bourbon and Coke just to go to church.
Wow.
You know, we live just right down the street from a church. So if I took a couple double shots right before I went, that would hold me over. Just being sober became like pretty undoable. But yeah, then when I got out of the Army, I started smoking weed like right off the bat. I'd smoked weed a lot when I was a kid. And before the Army, I always had to give it up during the Army. And that helped a lot. That helped stop the panic attacks. But, you know, drinking and smoking weed, I viewed these things were detrimental to my health and the long-term well-being of my life. But they were useful tools at the time. And I'm grateful to have those tools because, you know, I probably would have blown my head off. A lot of my friends did.
Yeah.
I lost more friends to suicide than I did to enemy action in all 3 of my deployments.
Wow.
You know, I've lost significantly more friends to suicide since we came home than they actually got killed in Afghanistan or Syria. And alcohol and marijuana was a crutch for me during those times. So I stopped having panic attacks pretty much when I got out of the Army because I was able to start smoking weed. But that, you know, these things, alcohol and weed bring on their own sets of problems. You know?
Yeah. So at some point, you must have, I'm guessing that you came to a realization that you had to do something about it. Like you've got to seek help or you've got to do something that led you to your Ibogaine story, which I know you're going to share here in a minute. But I'm curious, like, what got you to that point? Like, did you have a moment where you just like, I can't keep going like this. I have to make a change?
It wasn't so much like one specific moment, but I knew that this was unsustainable. I kind of thought when I got out, it would get better on its own, which it kind of did, but not really. Yeah, just a little bit. I started seeing a counselor through the VA. That helped. She was really great. So I was doing a lot. From getting out of the Army, I immediately was a full-time college student. I actually was taking night classes before I even got out of the Army. So for me, like, I was immediately engaged in college and being a full-time college student, which was great. And that had a lot of really great effects on my mind because it got my mind working again and learning, especially struggling through heavy things, actually changes your brain and causes neurogenesis. And so that in and of itself made a huge difference. And I constantly am telling other veterans to go back to school. Even if you don't care or don't, you know, you're not interested, to do it anyway. Just do it for the sake of it. And I mean, it's a nice break from working. Working sucks. So going back to school was a big boost. You know, I never stopped working out. Well, for a few months during COVID, I stopped working out because all the gyms closed and I hate running. But pretty much I didn't stop working out. Like, that makes another big difference in your mental state. After that short period during COVID that I wasn't working out, when I started, I was taking calculus, and that was a struggle. That was brutal. And when the gyms opened back up, I started going back, and I realized even though taking an hour and a half out of my morning, I got more done during the rest of the day. Sauna, I started meditating at the advice of my counselor. That was a big one. That was a game changer. But all these things were helpful, and they all brought me to a better place, but not all the way. And I was still in a real bad place.
Yeah, that brings me back to my question a little bit earlier. How did you first hear about Ibogaine, and what made you decide to pursue it?
So at that point, where I've been doing all these things that were all helpful, but it was not enough to bring me back to a state of happiness or even close. I was still pretty miserable without alcohol or marijuana. And that bothered me deeply. that this was a compulsive behavior. And it bothered me that I needed to. Like, it wasn't, I don't necessarily have anything against alcohol or marijuana in and of themselves, but being unhappy at the point where I need it and not being able to do anything about that was a problem. And that was about the time, like, I tried everything and I couldn't make progress with sobriety or drinking. And it was really getting to the point where it bothered me. It was holding me back because I couldn't do anything in the evening that didn't involve alcohol, like no social events unless there was alcohol. Mm-hmm. And then I heard a podcast with Joe Rogan. I think it was in last January 2nd, I think is the podcast where former Governor Rick Perry, the Texas governor, and Brian Hubbard were his guests. And that hearing them talk, I'd heard about it, but not that much. And I looked into it as like trying to get a hold of it, like black market style. And I found out like it's pretty dangerous and it's not really available in America, even on the black market. So I just wrote it off. I didn't think much of it after that. But then hearing this podcast and hearing them talk about it, being offered in clinics down in Central America and Mexico, that was kind of an eye-opener to the feasibility of it. It was above the board instead of under the table, I guess. And what really sold me on it was they sent 30 veterans down, and Brain Research Lab in Stanford found a pretty interesting workaround because this has been illegal to study in America. But they found a pretty interesting workaround where they studied these guys, did complete psychological and physical evaluations, and sent them down to do the Ibogaine in Mexico, and then studied them again when they came back. I thought that was really, I thought that was a clever workaround. But what really got me was the results. Because all these guys were alcoholics. Most of them were doing drugs other than alcohol as well. Most of them had tried to commit suicide at least once. And all of them were like suicidal level of PTSD. They're saying like 80, 90% of them after 30, 60 days and 6 months were showing almost complete remission of their PTSD symptoms. And most of them had quit drinking and doing drugs. Mm-hmm. That was shocking. I'm sure. And the results themselves were amazing, but what got me even more personally was that they had done brain scans on these guys before and after, and they could physically see a change in their brains from the Ibogaine. And that was what really got me. I mean, to be honest, like the results speak for themselves, but it's, to me, for some reason, it was more interesting because there was a physical change in their brain. Like, this was more than just an emotional reset, which is what you hear about ayahuasca, and that's kind of what I associate with ayahuasca. I've never done it. I've known some people who have, but and some other drugs, hallucinogens are showing a lot of effects in treatment PTSD. But anyway, I had always associated with just an extreme emotional reset. Yeah. But this was more than that, and. During my research on brain health and neuroplasticity, trying to get myself right and also trying to survive college, I learned that, you can see in the brain changes from PTSD and concussions, and like extreme emotional trauma actually has a physically measurable effect on the brain. It's almost like an analogy would be like a blown out fuse. Like, this isn't just emotional problems or like your brain getting tangled up in your thought life. This is like these PTSD, and not just Army related PTSD, but PTSD in general. It's so extreme that like your brain is hurting itself physically. Yeah. And the Ibogaine changing that was what hit me the hardest, and that was when I decided to do it. And I just started calling down or researching and found a place, and went down over spring break. I was there for about 6 days, and that was March 10th, and did the Ibogaine, which is a whole thing by itself, and got sober for the first time in 20 years.
Corby, so anybody that I've talked to recently about Ibogaine really doesn't know what Ibogaine is. Like, I've talked to multiple people this week about, oh, I'm excited, I'm going to interview this guy. And I first heard about Ibogaine on a podcast as well with Brian. It was a different podcast, but same thing. So it sparked my interest. But I wanted to read a quick Ibogaine description because I think a lot of people don't know what it is. So Ibogaine is a psychoactive compound derived from the root bark of the African shrub Tabernathi iboga.
Nicely done.
We'll see. I don't know. Traditionally used in spiritual rituals in parts of Central Africa. In modern times, it's been studied, though still controversially, for its potential therapeutic effects in addiction, trauma, and mental health. What makes Ibogaine particularly interesting is its reported ability to produce a deep, introspective experience, sometimes described as visionary, dreamlike, followed by a period of processing and integration. In preliminary observational trials, and you talked about this, especially involving veterans with PTSD or traumatic brain injury, researchers have seen promising improvements in symptoms of anxiety, depression, PTSD, and some studies reporting reductions in suicide. That said, Ibogaine is not without significant risks. One of the main concerns is cardiotoxicity. I've heard of this, including potential for fatal heart arrhythmias. Because of those risks, many protocols now pair Ibogaine with magnesium supplementation and rigorous medical supervision. I thought this was interesting too, and I learned this on the podcast. So legally, Ibogaine is still classified in the U.S. as a Schedule I substance, meaning it's illegal to possess or prescribe, and it has no FDA-approved medical use at the present time. But lately, there's a momentum shifting in places like Texas, where we are. So in 2025, this year, Governor Greg Abbott signed the Senate Bill 2308, which allocates state funding to help support clinical trials for Ibogaine and other psychedelic research, especially for neurological and behavioral conditions. So that being said, is there anything that you would...
Sorry, my robot came on.
That's okay. I mean, does that seem pretty on point?
That was an excellent description, yeah. That was a really good description of it. So this is a hallucinogenic substance. So, and it, like I said, it does have it can kill you. This is why it's not really a party drug. Also, it's very unpleasant, which is why it's not a party drug. Mm-hmm. The process, if you'd like, I'll just tell you the process of the physical process, I guess,
I'm very
how
curious.
it goes.
We want to hear it.
So where I went was in Tijuana. They have these clinics all over Mexico and Central America. There's bunches of them. I can send you a link for the place I went. You can post up with the information for this podcast. It was a clinic with an actual, what I would imagine a spa type clinic, where it was like what had been a mansion that had been
renovated or something?
Renovated, yeah. It had been set up to be a clinic. So it had several rooms for different patients. There was doctors there, nurses, a staff for cooking. And you go down there, and for some people, depending on what kind of drug you're addicted to, not everybody even is addicted to drugs. Some people just go down there for PTSD. But depending on the type of drug you're on, you may have to just hang out there until you detox. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of people addicted to pills that go down there, so they'll have to detox for 2 weeks before they go. Like alcohol and marijuana. Marijuana is not that big of a deal for detox. Alcohol, if you're gonna have physical problems from detoxing, they want you to be through with that before you start it. And so when you get there, they do blood tests and drug tests to see where you're at on all these different things. They test your heart, they test your liver, and to see how healthy you are. And they base their dosage off of your body weight and your health as determined by the doctor. And then when it comes time for you to do it, it kind of goes like this. You'll go down there, you get the blood tests, and you detox if necessary. That period would be different for different people. And then the day that you go to do your treatment, they give it to you in the evening. A couple of reasons. For one, you become very light sensitive and you don't want any kind of bright lights. It's just uncomfortable. Two, it prevents you from being able to go to sleep. You're just not going to be able to go to sleep. So you start this at 6 you take it at 6 in the evening, and you're going to be up awake all night. And they put heart monitors on you and an EKG, and so that reports, and also they monitor your blood pressure and your heart rate, your blood oxygen, because it's also like an extreme kind of sedative, not like a sedative you may think of like pills or painkillers, but it slows your heart rate down, so it kind of turns you into a zombie. You can just kind of melt into your bed.
Wow.
But you can't.
And you just stay there.
That's interesting.
Correct. Your mind is going 100 miles an hour, but your body, you still can move around. You don't want to, because there's also extreme nausea. Like you're laying perfectly still and you move your hand, and that's enough to make you seasick.
Interesting.
Wow.
But you can get up and go to the bathroom, and it just takes an extreme amount of effort, and then you go straight back to laying still. And they're monitoring your heart rate from the nurse's station in the other room. There's an actual medical doctor there in addition to the nurses. They have crash cards. So this is you only want to do this in a real professional setting. And that was this kind of setting that we're talking about. And so you take it, the way I did it at the place I went, she gave me a small dose. She had the dose. The doctor decided the dose. Just get it from a compounding pharmacy there in Mexico, and it comes in capsule form. And so like you can see it's little tiny crystalline powder inside these capsules. And they decide your dose. And the way they did it, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, is they gave me a small portion of the dose, came back like 30 minutes later, make sure I wasn't having a reaction, an allergic reaction or anything. And if everything looked good, which it did, they gave me the first full portion of a dose. And they portioned this out into 5 individual capsules. And they gave me the first one, 30 minutes later, they gave me another one. And then they waited like an hour for the next one. And then, or another half an hour. I don't remember exactly.
I'm sure it's all quite a blur.
Yeah, and they keep coming back, and it takes like 2 hours to really start kicking in.
Really?
And it's funny because after like 2 hours, I was barely feeling it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this probably isn't going to work for me. Like whatever. That's okay. It's still good. I don't know. For some reason, I thought I wasn't going to trip, but you're going to.
Then it kicked in right immediately after you had that thought.
Yeah. So and then it starts kicking in, and it kicks in real hard, real hard, like a train that just won't stop accelerating. Okay. And they came in. There was 4 or 5 tablets, and they give you the option, because by the time you get to the 5th tablet, it's kicking in pretty hard. Yeah. And they give you the option whether or not you want to take the 5th one. And at one point...
So wait a minute, it switches to tablets? It starts with capsules, and then they...
capsules, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Capsules, yeah.
So they just titrate you. They titrate you.
Yeah.
So did you take the last dose, or did you say, no, man?
At one point I was like, I don't want any more. This is scary. This doesn't feel right. Yeah. I don't want any more. She's like, well, you already took the last one. I'm like, okay, good.
Thank God.
So yeah, I took them all. Wow. I took all 5. And I recommend always, I can see why somebody might not want to, because it's really scary. But like for anybody who's actually going to go down, take the 5th one and do it. It's worth it. And you're awake all night, you're in the state all night. You're tripping for about 18 hours, 12 to 18 hours. You're bedridden for about 12 to 18 hours. I got out of bed after 12 hours, and that's abnormal.
Really?
But I was so happy to start my life that I couldn't wait. Like I got up and like threw open the curtains, and the light came in, and it was shocking. And I like stumbled into the kitchen and drank some coffee and ate a big breakfast, and it was awesome. But I was still tripping.
You were?
You're still tripping that whole day, but you're like, a normal small amount of tripping. Like, and they know it's okay because they know you're in a safe place and everybody knows. Like, you wouldn't want to go out in public still.
No. Yeah. Are you by yourself this whole time?
Yeah. It wouldn't matter if there was people there or not, because once it really kicks in, you wouldn't talk to. Like,
okay.
If you want to go, I can tell you the actual experience too.
I would love to hear.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We're chomping at the bit. Please,
Okay, so
please share. Hey guys, we just wanted to make this a 2-part series. This story is so unbelievable and has Melanie and I with a chokehold. And so we just want to make this a 2-part series, and we want you to come back for part 2 of his actual journey, the Ibogaine journey that he goes on.
It was a long episode. The whole conversation we had with Corby was almost 2 hours long. So we did decide it was important to split it up. But guys, we're like freaking out right now. The conclusion of this story, what he walks us through in terms of his experience in his Ibogaine journey, and then the way his life has changed after he got home from it, is mind-blowing, guys.
Yeah.
I cried. You know, if you've been watching our show for any length of time, you know Gina will just boo-hoo about anything, but I don't. His story, I had goosebumps on my arms through most of it. I literally cried, you guys. It is the most incredible thing ever. So we're going to split it into 2 because otherwise it would be just very, very long. But we really encourage you to come back for part 2, which we'll make sure we release it 1 week right after another. Don't miss it. It is huge. It is incredibly profound, incredibly moving. His takeaways from his experience. I mean, I'm like buzzing right now.
Yeah. So we will see you guys back for episode 2 of the Corby Maupin interview.
Yeah.
So
and don't forget to hit that like button on your way out. Okay.
Thank you,
We
guys.
love you guys. Thank you so much. See you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.